Welcome to this gentle journey through the enchanting world of Japanese mythology. These ancient tales have soothed souls for countless generations, and now they offer you a pathway to peaceful slumber. If these stories bring you comfort, consider supporting this channel with a like and subscription for more mythological bedtime journeys. Now close your eyes and let the first whispers of these timeless narratives carry you toward tranquil dreams. Long before time was measured, before the first human footsteps marked the earth, there existed only a vast, formless void. The ancient Japanese called this primordial state konton, a cosmic expanse where nothing was distinct, yet everything was possible. As you feel your body growing heavier against your bed, imagine this boundless sea of potential where elements drift freely, awaiting the touch that would give them purpose and form. Within this ancient chaos, a subtle vibration began, like the gentle rhythm of your own slowing breath. The lighter essences of creation, those most refined and ethereal, naturally rose upward. These elements, luminous and pure, formed what would become Takamagahara, the high plane of heaven. Meanwhile, the denser, more substantial elements descended, eventually coalescing into a cosmic ocean below. Between these newly separated realms appeared Amanukihashi, the floating bridge of heaven, a pathway connecting what was above with what was below, much like the bridge your consciousness now crosses between wakefulness and dream. Upon this celestial bridge manifested the first divine beings. Among these earliest kama emerged two figures of profound importance, Izanagi no Mikoto and Izanami no Mikoto, whose names translate to the male who invites and the female who invites. These primordial deities were neither fully separate nor entirely unified, complementary forces whose interaction would bring forth all that exists. The divine pair received a heavenly gift, a jeweled spear called a Menonuhoko, gleaming with celestial light. Standing at the edge of infinity, they gazed upon the endless waters below. With gentle movements, they extended the sacred spear downward, stirring the cosmic sea with slow, deliberate motion. As they lifted the spear, something miraculous occurred. From its tip, drops of salt water fell, crystallizing as they descended. Where they touched the cosmic ocean, these droplets formed the first solid matter, a small island named Onogoro. This first creation, though modest in size, represented the fundamental transition from potential to reality, the first dream made manifest. Pleased with what they had brought into being, Izanagi and Izanami descended from the celestial bridge to explore this newly formed land. Upon its shores, they erected a sacred pillar called a Menomi Hashira, the heavenly August pillar. Around this cosmic axis, they began a ceremonial procession, moving in opposite directions. When they met on the other side of the pillar, Izanami, in her joy, spoke first. How wonderful to meet such a beautiful male. Their subsequent union produced a child, but one considered imperfect, Hiruko, later known as Ebisu. The celestial powers determined this imperfection stemmed from Izanami having spoken first, reversing what was seen as the natural order of courtship. Understanding this cosmic principle, the divine couple circled the pillar once more. This time, when they met, Izanagi spoke first. How wonderful to meet such a beautiful female. From this properly ordered union came the true beginning of creation. Izanami then gave birth to the islands that would form the Japanese archipelago, each emerging not merely as land, but as a living kami with its own divine essence. First came Awaji, small but perfect. Then emerged Shikoku with its 4 provinces, followed by Oki and the bountiful land of Kyushu. The islands of Iki and Tsushima formed next, then northern Sado arose from the waters. Finally, the great island of Honshu, the main island of Japan, was born, completing the sacred body of the nation. In Japanese mythology, these islands were not simply geographical features, but divine children, living entities with spirits, personalities, and sacred purposes. Each formation, each mountain and river upon them, contained divine essence, a perspective that sees the natural world not as mere matter, but as conscious, sacred presence. After creating the land itself, Izanagi and Izanami began to populate their new world with various kami, divine spirits that would inhabit and govern every aspect of nature. They gave birth to deities of mountains, trees, rivers, winds, and all the elements necessary for a complete world. In traditional Japanese belief, everything in nature possesses spiritual essence, from the towering mountain to the smallest pebble, from the ancient forest to the morning dew. Among the many divine children of Izanagi and Izanami, 3 would prove especially significant for the cosmic order. From Izanagi's left eye emerged Amaterasu Omikami, the radiant goddess of the sun, whose light would illuminate and sustain the world. From his right eye came Tsukuyomi no Mikoto, the god of the moon who would govern the night sky and its mysteries. And from his nose sprang Susanoo no Mikoto, the powerful god of storms and the sea, whose tempestuous nature would bring both destruction and renewal. These 3 noble siblings, representing the celestial lights and the formidable forces of nature, would continue the divine drama of creation, their complex relationships establishing patterns that would be reflected in the human world below. The harmonious act of creation, however, soon gave way to profound tragedy. After giving birth to numerous islands and kami, Izanami prepared to deliver Kagutsuchi no Kami, the god of fire. Unlike her previous births, this one proved catastrophic. The intense heat of the fire deity fatally burned Izanami from within, inflicting wounds from which she could not recover. As Izanami lay dying, her suffering body continued to create new life, a powerful reminder that even in endings, beginnings may be found. From her tears formed Mizuhama no Kami, the deity of water. From her excretions emerged Hanayama Haim, the princess of earth and clay, and Kanayama Haim, the princess of metals. These final births completed the elements necessary for human civilization: water for life, earth for cultivation, metal for tools, and fire for transformation. With these final acts of creation, Izanami's spirit departed to Yomi, the shadowy land of the dead, establishing the first death and the inevitable cycle that would touch all creation thereafter. Her journey marked the separation of the realm of the living from the realm of the dead, a boundary as significant as that between heaven and earth. Izanagi, overcome with grief and unable to accept this separation, resolved to follow his beloved into the underworld. His descent into Yomi parallels the journey we each make nightly into the depths of sleep, crossing thresholds of consciousness into territories where different laws prevail. The path to Yomi was long and increasingly shadowed. As Izanagi ventured deeper, darkness enveloped him, yet the memory of Izanami pulled him forward through the gloom. When he finally reached the shadowy realm, he called out to his beloved, his voice echoing through the silent halls of death. From the shadows, Izanami answered, her voice now altered by her transformation. She explained that she had already eaten the food of Yomi, creating a bond with the underworld that could not easily be broken, a mythological motif found across many cultures, where consuming the food of another realm creates an irrevocable connection. Nevertheless, moved by Izanagi's devotion, she agreed to speak with the lords of Yomi about the possibility of her return. She asked only that he wait patiently in darkness, and most crucially, that he not attempt to look upon her until they had safely departed the underworld together. This prohibition against seeing what must remain unseen appears in mythologies worldwide, reminding us of the boundaries that separate different orders of existence. As time passed in darkness, Izanagi's patience waned. The silence and shadow became unbearable, his longing for Izanami overwhelming his judgment. Breaking his promise, he took a single tooth from his comb and lit it as a torch, illuminating the chamber where Izanami had gone. What Izanagi saw by this forbidden light shattered his heart. Izanami's once beautiful form had undergone a profound transformation. Her body was now in decay, with writhing maggots and 8 thunder deities residing within her flesh. The realm of death had claimed her completely, rendering her fundamentally changed, neither the wife he had known nor something entirely other, but a being caught between states. Horrified and heartbroken, Izanagi cried out and fled. His reaction wounded Izanami deeply. What had been a mission of love became a second abandonment. Enraged by his broken promise and apparent rejection, she commanded the hideous female spirits of Yomi, the Shikomi, to pursue him, along with the 8 thunder deities now loyal to her. Izanagi's desperate flight through the underworld speaks to our own instinctive resistance to mortality, the universal human desire to escape the knowledge of our inevitable transformation. As he ran, pursued by the forces of death, he cast behind him his headdress, which transformed into grapes that temporarily distracted his pursuers. Next, he threw down his comb, which became bamboo shoots, again briefly halting the chase. When Izanami herself joined the pursuit, Izanagi reached the boundary between Yomi and the world of the living, a place called Yomotsu-Hirasaka, the flat slope of Yomi. There, he placed an enormous boulder to seal the passage, forever separating the realm of the living from the domain of the dead. On opposite sides of this cosmic boundary stone, the divine couple exchanged their final words. Izanami, now fully transformed into the Queen of Yomi, vowed in her anger to take 1,000 lives each day. Izanagi countered that he would then give life to 1,500 beings daily, ensuring that life would always triumph over death, even if individual lives must end. This exchange established the fundamental balance of existence, the eternal cycle of creation and dissolution, growth and decay that characterizes all life. In this cosmic equilibrium lies a profound comfort. Though individual forms pass away, life itself continues unabated, an endless river flowing through ever-changing channels. Upon his return from the underworld, Izanagi felt defiled by his contact with death and impurity. He went to a stream at a place called Awagihara for ritual purification, an act known as misogi, which remains foundational to Shinto spiritual practice today. As he cleansed himself in the flowing water, he created even more kami, bringing new light from his encounter with darkness. When he washed his left eye, Amaterasu emerged once more, reinforcing her position as the supreme deity. From his right eye, Tsukuyomi appeared again, and from his nose, Susanoo was reborn. This threefold creation established a divine triumvirate that would govern the cosmic forces most essential to life: light, darkness, and the transformative power of storm. With greater care than before, Izanagi assigned realms to his three noble children. To Amaterasu, he entrusted the heavens, making her the ancestress of the imperial line and the most revered deity in the Shinto pantheon. To Tsukuyomi, he gave dominion over the night and all its mystery. And to the tempestuous Susanoo, he assigned the seas and storms, forces powerful but potentially destructive when unchecked. This cosmic distribution of power created a framework for understanding the world's rhythms and cycles. The sun brings light, growth, and order. The moon governs tides, cycles, and intuition. The storms and seas represent both destruction and necessary renewal. Together, they create the dynamic balance that sustains existence, not unlike the balance of wakefulness and sleep, consciousness and dream that maintains our own well-being. The creation myth of Japan reflects the island nation's unique geography and cultural values. The importance of purification rituals, the reverence for natural phenomena as divine entities, and the complex interplay between order and chaos all emerge from this foundational story, which continues to influence Japanese aesthetics, ethics, and worldview today. As your consciousness grows heavier and your thoughts more distant, consider how these ancient stories speak to universal human experiences: the emergence of form from formlessness, the cycle of life and death, the importance of proper relationship, and the power of creation that continues even in the face of loss. The sacred islands of Japan, born from divine union and persisting through cosmic drama, now merge in your mind with the islands of thought slowly dissolving as sleep approaches. Like the drops of water falling from Izanagi's spear to form the first land, your awareness now condenses into the gentle rhythms of pre-sleep consciousness, each breath bringing new patterns to the formless void of approaching dreams. In our next chapter, we will explore the luminous story of Amaterasu, the sun goddess whose retreat into a cave once plunged the world into darkness. But for now, allow these ancient creation tales to rock you gently toward dreams, each breath bringing you closer to the rejuvenating realm where consciousness transforms, much as the cosmic chaos transformed into the beautiful islands of Japan under the care of the divine. Rest well, and may the kami watch over your dreams until morning light returns. As you continue to settle into comfort, we turn now to the story of perhaps the most revered deity in the Japanese pantheon, Amaterasu Omikami, the great goddess of the sun. Her name itself tells us much about her nature. Ama means heaven. Terasu means to shine. She is the heaven-shining deity whose light blesses the world below. Amaterasu's position in Japanese mythology is unrivaled. As the sun goddess, she brings warmth, light, and life to the world. As the ancestress of the Japanese imperial family, she connects the divine realm to the human world through her descendants. And as the principal deity of the Shinto pantheon, she embodies the virtues most cherished in Japanese culture: purity, wisdom, and compassion. Born from the left eye of Izanagi during his purification after returning from the Underworld, Amaterasu was immediately recognized as special. Her father was so impressed by her radiant beauty that he bestowed upon her his sacred necklace of jewels and entrusted her with ruling the high celestial plane, Takamagahara, the realm of the gods. Amaterasu took her responsibilities seriously, bringing order and light to the heavenly realm. Under her benevolent guidance, the heavens flourished. She became known not only for her brightness, but for her nurturing nature, teaching humans the art of cultivating rice and weaving cloth, foundations of civilization. The harmony of heaven, however, was frequently disturbed by her unpredictable brother, Susanoo, the storm god. Where Amaterasu was ordered and disciplined, Susanoo was wild and tempestuous. While she created and nurtured, he often destroyed in fits of temper or grief. Their relationship was complex, marked by periods of cooperation and bitter conflict. In one famous episode, before Susanoo was banished from heaven for his disruptive behavior, he went to bid farewell to his sister. Amaterasu, suspicious of his intentions, prepared for their meeting by arming herself and tying up her long hair in bunches, ready for potential conflict. To prove his good intentions, Susanoo proposed a challenge. They would each take an object belonging to the other and create new deities from it. From Susanoo's sword, which Amaterasu crunched into pieces, sprung forth three goddesses. From Amaterasu's jewels, which Susanoo broke apart with his teeth, emerged five gods. Because Susanoo's item had produced goddesses, while Amaterasu's had produced gods, Susanoo claimed victory. Emboldened by this success, or perhaps always intending mischief, Susanoo began a rampage of destruction. He broke down the divisions between rice fields, filled irrigation ditches, and defiled Amaterasu's sacred weaving halls by breaking through the roof and dropping a flayed horse into the chamber where her priestesses worked on ceremonial garments. One of Amaterasu's attendants was so shocked by this desecration that she pricked herself with her shuttle and died. This final offense proved too much for Amaterasu to bear. Deeply hurt and angered by her brother's behavior, she retreated into a cave called the Iwayado, the rock cave door, and sealed herself inside. With the sun goddess hidden away, darkness fell upon both the heavenly and earthly realms. Without Amaterasu's life-giving light, the world was plunged into cold darkness. Plants ceased to grow, and chaos began to reign once more. The countless gods and goddesses gathered in dismay outside the sealed cave, wondering how to coax the sun goddess back into the world. After much deliberation, the deities devised an ingenious plan. First, they gathered roosters, whose crowing might make Amaterasu think dawn had arrived despite her absence. They also crafted an elaborate mirror from celestial metal and hung it on a sacred sakaki tree near the cave's entrance, along with jewels and textile offerings. Most importantly, they asked Amno Uzume, the goddess of dawn and revelry, to perform a dance. Uzume overturned a washtub and began a rhythmic, increasingly wild dance upon it. As her dance grew more abandoned, she began to shed her clothing, piece by piece, causing the male gods to roar with laughter. The sounds of music, dancing, and uproarious laughter puzzled Amaterasu within her dark cave. How could there be such merriment when the world was supposedly in darkness? Curiosity piqued, she pushed the rock door open just slightly and called out, asking the reason for the celebrations. Uzume cleverly replied that they were celebrating a new deity even more magnificent than Amaterasu. When the sun goddess opened the door a bit further to peer out, she caught sight of her own reflection in the sacred mirror hung before the cave. Never having seen herself before, she was momentarily transfixed by the radiant being in the mirror. Taking advantage of her distraction, the strong deity Amaterasu reached out, took hold of her hand, and gently but firmly pulled her from the cave. Another god quickly placed a shimenawa, a sacred rope of rice straw, across the entrance, preventing Amaterasu from retreating again. Light was restored to the world, and both heaven and earth rejoiced in the sun's return. This myth is particularly significant in Japanese culture, explaining not only natural phenomena, the daily rising of the sun, but also establishing the importance of music, dance, and laughter as means of restoring harmony and balance. The sacred mirror, along with the jewels and the sword that emerged during Susanoo and Amaterasu's contest, became the three imperial regalia of Japan, symbols of the emperor's divine ancestry and right to rule. After this incident, the heavenly gods banished Susanoo from heaven as punishment for his offenses. As for Amaterasu, she returned to her duties with renewed commitment, once more bringing light and life to the world with her radiant presence. The mirror that had been used to lure Amaterasu from the cave took on special significance. Known as Yata no Kagami, the eight-span mirror, it came to symbolize Amaterasu herself. Even today, most Shinto shrines contain a sacred mirror as the Go-Shintai, or the sacred body of the kami, representing the divine presence. In particular, the Grand Shrine of Ise, considered Japan's most sacred Shinto shrine, is dedicated to Amaterasu. The inner shrine, Naiku, is said to house the original sacred mirror from the myth. The shrine is completely rebuilt every 20 years in a tradition called Shikinen Sengu, preserving ancient building techniques and symbolizing renewal and purification, values closely associated with Amaterasu herself. Festivals throughout Japan honor Amaterasu and recreate elements of the myth of her emergence from the cave. The Iwado Kagura, for example, is a sacred dance performance that reenacts Am no Uzume's dance to entice Amaterasu. As a kami of order and civilization, Amaterasu taught humanity not only how to cultivate rice, the staple food of Japan, but also how to weave cloth and create clothing, essential elements of human society. Her gifts to humanity highlight the creative, nurturing aspect of her divine nature, balancing her role as a powerful celestial deity. The tale of Amaterasu's retreat and return also offers us a gentle metaphor for the cycles of life, times of withdrawal and darkness eventually giving way to renewal and light. In our own lives, we often find that periods of retreat and reflection are necessary before new beginnings can emerge. As you continue your journey towards sleep, imagine the warm, gentle rays of Amaterasu's light gradually receding, allowing the peaceful darkness of night to encompass you. Just as the world rests in the cycle of day and night, allow your mind and body to embrace this time of restoration and renewal. In our next chapter, we will explore the tumultuous story of Susanoo, the storm god, and his journey of redemption. But for now, let the gentle rhythm of your breathing mirror the eternal rhythm of the sun's journey across the sky, constant, reliable, and ultimately reassuring. As your consciousness begins to drift, envision the sacred mirror reflecting golden sunlight, its surface growing dimmer as you sink deeper into relaxation. The ancient myth of Amaterasu reminds us that even in our darkest moments, light will always return. Rest easy in this knowledge as you journey toward the realm of dreams, cradled in the timeless wisdom of Japanese mythology. As your body continues to relax and your mind prepares for the gentle drift toward sleep, let us turn our attention to one of Japanese mythology's most complex and fascinating deities, Susanoo, the powerful god of storms and the sea. Born from the nose of Izanagi during his purification ritual, Susanoo embodies the untamed, tempestuous forces of nature. His very name, Takehaya Susanoo, which is often shortened to Susanoo, suggests his impetuous character. It can be interpreted as the swift, impetuous male deity. Unlike his radiant sister, Amaterasu, or his serene brother, Tsukuyomi, Susanoo represents the volatile, unpredictable aspects of existence. When Izanagi divided the realms among his three noble children, he assigned Susanoo the domain of the seas. However, this temperamental deity was not satisfied with his allotment. Instead of assuming his responsibilities, Susanoo began to weep uncontrollably, his tears causing devastating floods. When asked why he wept so profusely, he explained that he longed to visit his mother, Izanami, in the underworld. This response enraged Izanagi, who banished his son from the heavenly realm. Before his departure, Susanoo decided to bid farewell to his sister, Amaterasu, but as we learned in our previous tale, this visit ended disastrously, with Susanoo's destructive behavior causing the sun goddess to hide in a cave, plunging the world into darkness. For his transgressions, Susanoo was formally exiled from heaven. Cast out from the celestial realm, he descended to the earthly province of Izumo, part of present-day Shiman Prefecture, specifically to a place called Torikami, at the headwaters of the High River. It was here that Susanoo's complex journey of redemption would begin, transforming him from a destructive force into a heroic figure. Upon his arrival in Izumo, Susanoo heard sorrowful weeping. Following the sound, he came upon an elderly couple comforting a young maiden. When he inquired about their distress, the old man introduced himself as Ashinazuchi, a deity of the region. The weeping maiden was his daughter, Kushinada Haim, Princess Kushinada, and the elderly woman was his wife, Tenazuchi. The couple explained their tragic situation. They had originally had 8 daughters, but for 7 consecutive years, the fearsome 8-headed serpent Yamada no Orochi had come to devour one daughter each year. Now it was returning for Kushinada Hime, their 8th and final child. The grieving parents had tried everything to protect their daughters, but nothing could stand against the terrible serpent. Susanoo, perhaps seeking redemption or simply moved by the family's plight, offered to slay the monster in exchange for Kushinada Hime's hand in marriage. The parents gratefully agreed, desperate for any chance to save their last remaining daughter. With his divine cunning, Susanoo devised a plan. He transformed Kushinada Hime into a comb, which he placed in his hair for safekeeping. Then he instructed the elderly couple to prepare 8 vats of strong sake, rice wine, each placed on a separate platform with a fence around it. When the monstrous Yamada no Orochi arrived, it was a terrifying sight to behold. The creature had 8 heads and 8 tails, with eyes red like winter cherries. Its body was so immense that it stretched across 8 valleys and 8 hills, and its belly was constantly inflamed and bloody. As it moved, trees and vegetation broke beneath it, leaving a trail of destruction in its wake. The 8-headed serpent approached the sake-filled vats, and enticed by the aroma, each head began to drink from a different vat. Before long, the powerful sake took effect, and the monster fell into a drunken stupor. Seizing his opportunity, Susanoo drew his miraculous sword, Totsuka no Tsurugi, also known as Amino Habakiri, Heavenly Snake Slayer, and began to cut off each of the creature's heads. When he reached the serpent's tails, his sword struck something hard. Curious, he split open the tail to investigate and discovered a magnificent sword inside. This divine weapon was known as Kusanagi no Tsurugi, the grass-cutting sword, though it was then called Amano Murakumo no Tsurugi, the heavenly cloud-gathering sword. Recognizing its power and significance, Susanoo later presented this sword to Amaterasu as a peace offering, a gesture that helped reconcile the siblings. This sword would eventually become one of the three imperial regalia of Japan, sacred treasures passed down through the imperial line. After slaying the fearsome Yamada no Orochi, Susanoo returned Kushinada Hime to her human form and married her as promised. They settled in Izumo, where Susanoo built a palace and established his domain. It was here that he composed the first Japanese poem, Yuta, ever recorded, expressing his joy at creating a home with his beloved wife. The poem, found in the Kojiki records of ancient matters, can be roughly translated as 8 clouds arise. The eightfold fence of Izumo makes an eightfold fence for the bride to live in. Oh, that eightfold fence. The repetition of 8, ya, in the original Japanese creates a rhythmic quality and references both the many clouds over Izumo and the secure dwelling Susanoo has created for his bride, protectively encircled like the sake vats that helped him defeat the 8-headed serpent. In Izumo, Susanoo and Kushinada Hime had numerous descendants, including Okuninushi, a deity who would later play a pivotal role in establishing civilization and order in the terrestrial realm. Through his offspring, particularly Okuninushi, Susanoo's influence extended far beyond his own direct actions, shaping the development of Japan according to mythology. The transformation of Susanoo from a disruptive, destructive force to a heroic dragon slayer, an ancestor of cultural heroes, represents a powerful narrative of redemption. His journey suggests that even the most tempestuous elements of nature, and by extension of human character, can be channeled toward constructive ends. While Susanoo never completely lost his volatile nature, his story illustrates how raw power, when properly directed, can become a force for protection rather than destruction. The storm god who once flooded the earth with his tears became the hero who saved a princess and her people from a terrible threat. The myths surrounding Susanoo offer rich psychological insights into the duality of human nature. His character embodies not only destructive rage, but also heroic courage, not only selfish desire, but also self-sacrificing protection. Like the storms he governs, Susanoo is capable of both devastating harm and life-giving renewal, the rain that floods can also nourish. Susanoo's worship in Japan reflects this complex character. While he is recognized as a deity capable of terrible destruction, he is also honored as a protector against evil. The grand shrine of Izumo, Izumo Taisha, one of Japan's oldest and most important Shinto shrines, is closely associated with Susanoo and his descendants. Interestingly, in Japanese art, Susanoo is often depicted not in moments of destructive rage, but in his heroic aspect, particularly in the scene of his victory over the Yamada no Orochi. This representation emphasizes the cultural preference for seeing even the most volatile forces of nature as potentially beneficial when properly respected and channeled. In everyday life, the legacy of Susanoo can be seen in the Japanese relationship with natural forces. Living in a land frequently visited by typhoons, earthquakes, and tsunamis, the Japanese people have developed both a healthy respect for nature's destructive capacity and an admirable resilience in the face of these challenges. Like Susanoo himself, these natural phenomena are not simply destructive, they are part of the cycle that maintains and renews the land. As you continue your journey toward sleep, think of how Susanoo's story mirrors the necessary balance of forces in our own lives. Just as stormy weather eventually gives way to calm, periods of turmoil in our lives often lead to clarity and renewal. The tension between order and chaos, between discipline and impulse, creates the dynamic equilibrium that makes life rich and meaningful. Let the rhythmic sound of gentle rain outside your window, real or imagined, remind you of the nurturing aspect of Susanoo's domain. Allow the tensions of your day to dissolve, just as the fearsome serpent was ultimately subdued. Feel your body becoming heavier, more relaxed with each breath as you prepare to cross the threshold into the realm of dreams. In our next chapter, we will explore the mysterious figure of Tsukuyomi, the moon god, and why the sun and moon never appear in the sky together. But for now, rest in the peaceful aftermath of the storm, secure in the knowledge that balance is always restored in the natural world. Let sleep approach you as gently as the morning light after a night of cleansing rain. As your breath deepens and your thoughts begin to quiet, we turn our attention to perhaps the most mysterious of the three noble siblings born from Izanagi, Tsukuyomi no Mikoto, the god of the moon and ruler of the night sky. His name combines Tsuku, meaning moon, and Yomi, suggesting both reading and counting, the moon by which ancient peoples measured months and seasons, reading time in the heavens above. Unlike his siblings, Amaterasu and Susanoo, whose vivid personalities and dramatic stories feature prominently in Japanese mythology, Tsukuyomi remains a more enigmatic figure. Born from the right eye of Izanagi during his purification after returning from the underworld of Yomi, Tsukuyomi was charged with ruling over the realm of night and darkness, complementing his sister Amaterasu's domain of daylight and heaven. In the earliest arrangements of the divine order, Tsukuyomi and Amaterasu were harmonious companions. In fact, according to some versions of the mythology, they were married, representing the natural balance of day and night, sun and moon, light and darkness. Their union symbolized the perfect complementary relationship between opposing forces, a concept deeply valued in Japanese philosophical thought. This celestial harmony, however, was not destined to last. The most significant myth involving Tsukuyomi explains why the sun and moon never share the sky, why day and night remain forever separate rather than appearing together. The tale begins with Ukemochi, the goddess of foods. She was a benevolent deity whose very being was connected to nourishment and abundance. When she wished to provide a feast, she could produce food in miraculous ways, turning toward the sea to spew out fish, facing the forest to bring forth game animals, or bowing to the rice paddies to produce abundant grains. One day, Amaterasu sent Tsukuyomi to represent her at a feast being held by Ukemochi. The food goddess, wanting to honor her divine guest, prepared the meal in her traditional manner. She turned toward the ocean, and from her mouth came an abundance of fish. She faced the forest, and game appeared. She bowed to the land, and crops materialized in abundance. But Tsukuyomi, rather than being impressed by these miraculous creations, was utterly disgusted by the goddess's methods. In his view, the food, though delicious and beautifully presented, had been defiled by the manner of its creation. His reaction reveals an aspect of Japanese cultural values, the importance of purity and proper processes, especially when it comes to food preparation. Overcome with revulsion and anger, Tsukuyomi drew his sword and slew Ukemochi on the spot. The feast, intended as an offering of respect and hospitality, ended in violence and death. When Amaterasu learned what her brother had done, she was horrified and enraged. To her, this act represented not just violence, but a fundamental violation of sacred hospitality and respect. More importantly, it threatened the very sustenance of both gods and humans. By killing the food goddess, Tsukuyomi had endangered the abundance of the world. So great was Amaterasu's anger that she refused ever to look upon Tsukuyomi again. She declared that she would no longer share the same sky with him, withdrawing to one part of the celestial realm while banishing him to another. This divine separation explains why the sun and moon never appear together. When one rises, the others must set. The cosmic balance now maintains itself through alternation rather than coexistence. Yet even in this tragedy, life found a way to continue. From Ukemochi's slain body emerged vital food sources that would sustain humanity. Cattle and then horses came from her head, silkworms from her eyebrows, millet from her ears, rice from her belly, and wheat and beans from her lower body. Thus, even in death, the goddess of food continued to provide nourishment, though humans would now need to work to cultivate these resources rather than receiving them as direct divine gifts. This myth offers profound insights into the Japanese cultural understanding of the natural order. The separation of night and day, like the cycle of the seasons, represents not a broken relationship, but a necessary rhythm, a pattern of alternation that maintains balance through separation rather than through simultaneous coexistence. The character of Tsukuyomi, with his concern for ritual purity, even at the cost of harmony, reflects aspects of Japanese religious thought, where proper form and cleanliness are essential components of spiritual practice. The myth also highlights the consequences of allowing rigid adherence to rules to override compassion and understanding, a tension explored in many world mythologies. Unlike Susanoo, who experienced a redemptive arc after his banishment, transforming from destroyer to hero, Tsukuyomi remains more static in the mythology. His role becomes primarily functional, governing the night sky, influencing the tides, and marking the passage of months. The emotional complexity of the other divine siblings is less evident in his character, as presented in the surviving myths. Yet in Japanese art and poetry, the moon governed by Tsukuyomi takes on immense cultural significance. The practice of tsukimi, moon viewing, celebrates the autumn full moon with special foods and sake offerings. The moon represents not just beauty, but impermanence, reflecting the Buddhist concept of mujo, the transitory nature of all things. In its waxing and waning, the moon embodies the natural cycles of growth, decline, and renewal that characterize all existence. The moon also came to be associated with the passage of time and the rhythm of agriculture. The traditional Japanese calendar was lunisolar, with months beginning with the new moon. Full moons marked the middle of each month, their predictable cycle providing structure to both sacred observances and daily life. In this way, Though separated from his sister the sun, Tsukuyomi still maintained an essential role in ordering human existence. In some regional variations of Japanese mythology, Tsukuyomi takes on additional roles. In certain traditions, he is associated with water and the tides, which naturally respond to the moon's gravitational pull. In others, he is connected to divination and dreams, his light illuminating the pathways of intuition and subconscious wisdom. The limited presence of Tsukuyomi in the major mythological texts may also reflect historical changes in Japanese religious practice. Some scholars suggest that his sun worship became increasingly important in legitimizing imperial rule, the emperor being considered a direct descendant of Amaterasu. The moon deity's prominence diminished in official accounts. Yet for the ordinary people of ancient Japan, the moon remained a powerful presence. Farmers planted and harvested by its phases. Travelers used its light to navigate night journeys. Poets and lovers found inspiration in its glow. The cultural significance of the moon extended far beyond the specific character of Tsukuyomi as presented in formal mythology. In modern Shinto practice, Tsukuyomi is still honored alongside the other kami, though he receives far fewer dedicated shrines than his siblings. Nevertheless, his influence persists in Japanese cultural aesthetics, where the moon continues to symbolize beauty, tranquility, and the sweet melancholy of impermanence. As you rest now, imagine the gentle light of the moon filtering through your window, casting soft shadows across your room. This is the realm of Tsukuyomi, a world not of harsh brilliance like his sister's daylight, but of subtle illumination and quiet revelation. His light reveals shapes and forms differently, transforming the familiar landscape of your daily life into something magical and new. The moon's cycle mirrors our own natural rhythms. Just as the moon waxes and wanes, so too do our energies, and moods follow patterns of increase and decrease. In embracing the night ruled by Tsukuyomi, we acknowledge our need for rest, for stillness, for the regenerative power of darkness. Let your awareness expand to include the vast night sky held under Tsukuyomi's care. Stars twinkle in the velvet darkness, reminding us that even in obscurity, points of light remain. The moon itself, whether full and radiant or a mere silver sliver, keeps its constant patrol across the heavens, companion to night travelers and dreamers alike. As sleep approaches, consider how the myth of Tsukuyomi teaches us about necessary separations and rhythmic alterations. Day cannot exist simultaneously with night. Each needs its own time, its own space to fulfill its purpose. Similarly, our lives require both periods of activity and stillness, engagement and withdrawal, expression and reflection. In our next chapter, we will explore the fascinating deity Inari, associated with rice, prosperity, and fox messengers. But for now, allow yourself to be cradled in the gentle arms of night, where Tsukuyomi's subtle radiance guides you toward the realm of dreams. Let each breath deepen your relaxation as you synchronize with the ancient, eternal rhythm of the celestial dance. The sun has completed its journey, and now the moon watches over your well-earned rest. As your muscles continue to relax and your mind drifts toward the borders of sleep, let us explore one of Japan's most beloved and complex deities, Inari Okami, the kami of rice, fertility, and prosperity. Unlike the cosmological deities we have discussed previously, Inari represents forces much closer to daily human experience, nourishment, growth, and the blessings of a bountiful harvest. Inari's mythology is unique among the major Japanese kami in several intriguing ways. First, unlike Amaterasu or Susanoo, whose genders are clearly defined, Inari appears in different manifestations as male, female, or androgynous depending on the region, tradition, or historical period. This fluid identity reflects Inari's association with the life giving properties that transcend simple categorization, like the rice plant itself, which transforms through cycles of growth. Inari embodies transformation and renewal. The origins of Inari worship extend far back into Japan's agricultural history. Rice cultivation arrived in Japan around the 3rd century BCE, quickly becoming the foundation of Japanese civilization. As the staple crop that sustained life and enabled the development of settled society, rice naturally acquired sacred status. Inari emerged as the kami most closely associated with this precious grain, embodying its life sustaining power. According to one creation myth, Inari descended to Japan from the heavenly realm carrying rice seeds to give to humanity. Landing on Mount Inari near Kyoto, the deity taught people how to cultivate this remarkable plant that would become the cornerstone of their diet and economy. This tale positions Inari as a culture hero and benefactor, bringing not just food, but civilization itself. In another version of the mythology, Inari originated when the food goddess Ukemochi was slain by Tsukuyomi. From her body sprang various foods, including rice plants. Inari became the guardian of these crops, embodying the regenerative principle that allows life to emerge even from death. This connection to Ukmochi links Inari to the cosmic drama of the major deities while establishing a unique role as the protector of agriculture. The most distinctive aspect of Inari's mythology is perhaps the association with foxes, or kitsune in Japanese. These magical animals serve as Inari's messengers and are often depicted holding a key in their mouths, the key to the rice granary, symbolizing food security. The connection between Inari and foxes likely developed from observations of actual foxes who would patrol the boundaries of rice fields, hunting rodents that might otherwise destroy the precious grain. What began as a natural alliance between farmers and wild foxes eventually transformed into a sacred relationship. In Japanese folklore, foxes possess supernatural abilities. They are shapeshifters, able to assume human form, particularly that of beautiful women. They can generate fire and lightning, create elaborate illusions, and possess a wisdom that grows with their age. A fox gains an additional tail every 100 years, with 9-tailed foxes being the most powerful and divine. These magical foxes are not Inari themselves, but rather the deity's servants and companions, though the distinction sometimes blurs in popular understanding. Shrines dedicated to Inari typically feature dozens or even hundreds of stone fox statues, their faces weathered by time yet still alert, watching over the sacred space. These foxes usually appear in pairs, symbolizing the dualities necessary for fertility and creation. Often, they hold symbolic objects in their mouths or under their paws, a jewel representing the soul, a scroll of wisdom, or a key to the rice granary. The most famous of all Inari shrines is Fushimi Inari Taisha in Kyoto, established in the 8th century CE. This magnificent complex stretches across an entire mountain, featuring thousands of vermilion torii gates forming tunnels along the pathways. Each gate was donated by a business or individual seeking Inari's blessing for prosperity. The shrine attracts millions of visitors annually, making it one of Japan's most visited sacred sites. As Japan transitioned from an agricultural society to a mercantile and later industrial economy, Inari's patronage expanded beyond rice to encompass general prosperity, success in business, and wealth. Merchants adopted Inari as their patron, placing small shrines in their shops and warehouses. Even today, many Japanese businesses maintain a small Inari shrine on their premises, honoring the ancient connection between commerce and the blessings of this adaptable deity. Inari's festivals reflect the agricultural calendar, with major celebrations coinciding with rice planting in spring and harvest in autumn. During these events, communities express gratitude for sustenance and pray for continued abundance. Festival foods often include inarizushi, fried tofu pouches filled with sushi rice, said to be a favorite of foxes. The golden color and slightly sweet taste of these pouches symbolize prosperity and the sweetness of life under Inari's protection. Beyond agriculture and commerce, Inari is also associated with other forms of fertility and creativity. Some traditions connect Inari with safe childbirth, successful conception, and the healthy development of children. Artists and craftspeople may pray to Inari for inspiration and skill, understanding creativity as another form of fertility. In this way, Inari's blessings extend to all forms of generative processes. The mythology of Inari teaches valuable lessons about sustainability and reciprocity. The deity bestows blessings, but humans must care for the land that produces rice, maintaining irrigation systems and respecting agricultural cycles. This relationship models sacred reciprocity. Humans honor the kami through offerings and proper cultivation practices, while the kami ensures continued abundance. In some regions, Inari has absorbed attributes of Buddhist figures, particularly Dakinetan, a Buddhist deity associated with foxes. This syncretic tradition exemplifies the harmonious blending of native Shinto beliefs with imported Buddhist concepts that characterizes much of Japanese religious history. Such flexibility allowed ancient agricultural worship to adapt to changing social circumstances while maintaining its essential character. One of the most poignant aspects of Inari mythology involves the connection between the living and the dead. Rice serves not only the living, but also forms an essential offering to ancestors, connecting generations through shared sustenance. In traditional belief, the spirits of the dead reside in the mountains during winter, descending to the rice fields in spring to help with the crops before returning to the mountains after harvest. Inari facilitates this cycle, bridging the worlds of the living and the departed. The fox messengers of Inari move freely between realms, much like the human soul journeys between states of being. This liminal quality makes Inari particularly appropriate for our bedtime contemplation, as we ourselves prepare to cross the threshold between waking and dreaming consciousness. The foxes who guide souls can also guide us gently toward restorative sleep. In Japanese art, Inari is variously depicted as an elderly man carrying rice, a lovely woman with white fox companions, or as a fox itself. Sometimes the deity appears as an androgynous being with both masculine and feminine characteristics, transcending simple categorization. Most commonly, however, the presence of Inari is represented not through direct depiction, but through symbols, fox statues, rice sheaves, jewels, and red torii gates. For the ordinary people of Japan throughout history, Inari represented hope in times of scarcity and gratitude in times of plenty. When drought or floods threatened the rice crop, communities would process to Inari shrines, bearing offerings and prayers. When harvests were abundant, they returned with thanksgiving. This cycle of supplication and gratitude created a rhythm that helped communities navigate the uncertainties of agricultural life. As your body grows heavier and your thoughts grow quieter, imagine the gentle rustle of rice fields in an evening breeze. Picture the golden stalks, heavy with grain, bowing slightly as if in respect to the natural forces that brought them into being. In the distance, perhaps you glimpse a white fox slipping between the rows, its intelligent eyes gleaming with ancient wisdom. This is Inari's domain, not the cosmic heavens of Amaterasu, nor the tumultuous seas of Susanoo, but the fertile earth itself, where life emerges in endless cycles of growth and rest. Like the rice plant that appears to die in winter only to return in spring, our consciousness retreats each night into the realm of sleep, gathering strength for renewal. As you prepare to enter this restorative state, consider the wisdom in Inari's fluid, adaptive nature. The deity teaches us that change is not to be feared, but embraced. The empty rice field will soon be green with new shoots. The bare branch will again bear blossoms. The mind that now releases thoughts will awaken refreshed with new insights. In our next chapter, we will explore the shadowy realm of Yomi, the Japanese underworld. But for now, allow yourself to be guided by Inari's foxes along the boundary between wakefulness and dreams. Trust that, like the rice farmer who plants seeds in prepared soil, you have set the conditions for renewal through rest. The white foxes pad silently beside you, their tails sweeping away worries, their keen senses alert to guide you safely through the night. As your consciousness continues to drift toward the threshold of sleep, we turn to one of the most mysterious realms in Japanese mythology, Yomi, the shadowy land of the dead. Unlike the fierce infernos or places of punishment found in some Western traditions, Yomi represents a subtler, more nuanced understanding of the afterlife, a place of continuation rather than conclusion, of transformation rather than finality. The word Yomi itself can be interpreted as the shadowy land, suggesting a realm of dimmed light rather than absolute darkness. In the ancient Japanese worldview, Yomi was neither a place of torment for the wicked nor paradise for the virtuous. Instead, it was simply where all souls eventually journeyed, a necessary part of the cosmic order, neither to be sought nor feared excessively, but acknowledged as part of life's complete cycle. Our most detailed account of Yomi comes from the story of Izanami and Izanagi that we explored in our first chapter. After Izanami died, giving birth to the fire god Kagutsuchi, she descended to Yomi, becoming its unwilling queen. Her husband, Izanagi, unable to accept their separation, decided to journey to this shadowy land to bring her back to the realm of the living. The entrance to Yomi was said to be located in the province of Izumo, modern-day Shiman Prefecture, specifically at a place called Yomotsu Hirasaka, the gentle slope to Yomi. This geographical specificity reflects the ancient Japanese belief that the boundaries between worlds were thin in certain places, allowing passage between realms under special circumstances. Izanagi's journey to Yomi represents one of the earliest descriptions of a katabasis, a descent to the underworld in world mythology. Such journeys appear in many cultural traditions, from Orpheus seeking Eurydice in Greek myth to Inanna's descent in Mesopotamian legend. These tales universally explore humanity's relationship with mortality and the boundaries between life and death. Upon reaching Yomi, Izanagi called out to Izanami, expressing his longing and asking her to return to the world above. From the shadows, she responded that she had already eaten the food of the underworld, a mythological motif found in many cultures, where consuming the food of the dead binds one to the realm of death. Nevertheless, moved by his pleas, she agreed to speak with the gods of Yomi about the possibility of her return. As she disappeared into the darkness to confer with these mysterious deities, she gave Izanagi one strict warning. He must not attempt to look upon her while she was gone. This prohibition echoes similar taboos in many mythological systems, where visual contact with the dead or with supernatural beings often leads to dire consequences. Izanagi waited in the darkness, but as time stretched on, his patience waned. Eventually, his love and curiosity overcame his caution. Breaking his promise, he lit a torch from a single tooth of his comb and sought out his wife in the depths of Yomi. What he discovered shattered his hopes of reunion. The once beautiful Izanami had transformed, her body decaying and inhabited by maggots. In some versions of the tale, she had already become one with the deities of Yomi, making her return impossible. This revelation, that death fundamentally transforms and that the dead cannot truly return, represents a profound acknowledgement of mortality's permanence. Horrified by what he saw, Izanagi fled, with Izanami pursuing him in rage and shame. "You have humiliated me," she cried out, her voice now transformed from that of his beloved into something otherworldly. The boundary between life and death, once crossed, cannot be undone through simple longing or regret. As Izanagi escaped, he blocked the passage between Yomi and the world above with a massive boulder, creating a permanent division between the realms of the living and the dead. This act established the natural order. Death is part of existence, but the worlds of the living and the dead must remain separate for cosmic balance to be maintained. From opposite sides of this boulder boundary, Izanagi and Izanami exchanged their final words. Izanami, now fully transformed into the Queen of Yomi, threatened to take 1,000 lives each day. Izanagi countered that he would give life to 1,500 beings daily, ensuring that life would always prevail over death. A poignant expression of the ongoing tension between creation and dissolution. Beyond this foundational myth, Japanese beliefs about Yomi evolved over time, absorbing influences from Buddhism and Confucianism. The pure Shinto conception of Yomi as a morally neutral underworld gradually incorporated elements of karma and moral judgment, though never to the degree found in some other traditions. In some later interpretations, Yomi was described as having multiple regions or levels, much like the Buddhist concept of Naraka, hell realms. However, these were generally seen as temporary states rather than eternal punishments, reflecting Buddhism's emphasis on impermanence and eventual liberation. The landscape of Yomi itself was variously described as a cavernous realm beneath the earth, a distant land across the sea, or a shadowy dimension parallel to our own. Common to most descriptions was the presence of a river serving as a boundary, mirroring the rivers of the underworld in Greek, Egyptian, and other mythologies. Yomi was said to be ruled by fearsome deities known as Yomotsu Kami, with Izanami herself becoming their queen after her death. These gods were rarely described in detail, maintaining their mysterious and somewhat terrifying nature. Their primary role was to ensure the separation between life and death remained intact. In contrast to Western traditions, where souls might be judged and assigned to different afterlife realms based on their earthly conduct, the early Japanese view held that all souls eventually journeyed to Yomi regardless of their actions in life. This reflects a cosmic view where death is seen not as punishment or reward, but simply as another phase in the great cycle of existence. Over time, as Buddhist influences reshaped Japanese religious thought, more complex afterlife beliefs developed. Souls were thought to be judged by Emma-O, Yama in Buddhism, the king of the underworld, who would assign them to appropriate realms based on their karma. These realms could include temporary hells for purification, heavenly realms for those with positive karma, or rebirth in the human world. Despite these Buddhist elaborations, elements of the original Yomi concept persisted in Japanese folk belief. One enduring tradition held that souls remained in the underworld for a specific period, often said to be 33 years, before becoming ancestral spirits who could watch over and occasionally visit their descendants. This belief created a sense of ongoing connection between the living and the dead. The Japanese conception of death was further shaped by the Obon festival, when ancestral spirits were believed to return temporarily to the world of the living. During this time, families would light lanterns to guide these spirits home, prepare special offerings, and engage in ceremonial dances. Rather than fearing the dead, Japanese tradition encouraged acknowledging and honoring them as continuing members of the family lineage. In Japanese art, Yomi was rarely depicted directly, perhaps reflecting the cultural reluctance to fixate on death's physical reality. When the underworld did appear in visual arts, it was often represented through symbolic elements: a dark cavern entrance, a misty river, or supernatural beings associated with death, rather than explicit scenes of the afterlife itself. Literary references to Yomi, however, are more common. The poetry of the Heian period, 8th to 12th centuries, contains subtle allusions to the shadowy land, using the imagery of autumn leaves, evening shadows, or the waning moon to evoke the transience of life and the quiet approach of death. These poetic treatments emphasize mono aware, the pathos of impermanence, rather than fear of judgment or eternal punishment. As you continue to relax and prepare for sleep, consider how the concept of Yomi offers a gentle perspective on life's impermanence. Just as we transition each night from wakefulness to sleep, all existence flows through natural cycles of activity and rest, presence and absence, light and shadow. There is wisdom in accepting these rhythms rather than resisting them. Think of sleep not as a smaller death, as some traditions suggest, but as a necessary complement to wakefulness, each state giving meaning to the other through contrast. Without darkness, we could not appreciate light. Without silence, music would lose its power. Without sleep, consciousness would lack renewal. In the ancient Japanese worldview, the boundaries between life and death, like those between waking and sleeping, were not rigid walls but permeable membranes. Though Izanagi's physical attempt to retrieve Izanami failed, communication between realms remained possible through ritual, memory, and dreams. As your thoughts grow quieter and your body heavier, imagine yourself approaching not the forbidding entrance to Yomi, but simply the gentle threshold of sleep. Like Izanagi at Yomotsu Hirasaka, you stand at a transitional space, but your journey is one of temporary retreat rather than permanent departure, of renewal rather than ending. The boulder that separates day from night, wakefulness from sleep, is rolled aside each morning, allowing you to return refreshed to the world of light and activity. This nightly small death is not to be feared, but embraced as the necessary complement to daily life, the yin to consciousness's yang. In our next chapter, we will explore the colorful world of yokai, the supernatural creatures that populate Japanese folklore. But for now, let the gentle currents of sleep begin to carry you away, not to the shadowy depths of Yomi, but to the restorative realm of dreams, where consciousness is transformed rather than extinguished, where the day's experiences are integrated rather than lost. Rest easily in the knowledge that, like the cycle of sun and moon, waking will follow sleeping in natural rhythm. Allow yourself to surrender to this universal pattern, trusting that the morning light will summon you back when your time of renewal is complete. As your breath grows deeper and your thoughts become more distant, we turn to explore the rich world of yokai, the supernatural beings that populate the hidden corners of Japanese folklore. These enigmatic creatures inhabit the boundaries between the ordinary and extraordinary, embodying both the mysteries of nature and the complexities of human psychology. The term yokai encompasses a vast array of entities, from shape-shifting animals and household spirits to transformed humans and manifestations of natural phenomena. Unlike the major deities we have discussed, yokai typically occupy a lower tier in the spiritual hierarchy, dwelling closer to the human world and frequently interacting with people in both helpful and mischievous ways. The origins of yokai belief stretch back to ancient times, when early Japanese people attributed mysterious events to supernatural beings. Unexplained sounds in the forest, strange lights over swamps, or household items that seemed to move on their own, all could be explained by the presence of these otherworldly entities. Yokai lore thus served as an early framework for understanding the inexplicable aspects of life. One of the most beloved categories of yokai are the transformed animals. After reaching a certain age or acquiring specific knowledge, ordinary animals were believed to develop supernatural powers, becoming bakemono or henge, transformed beings. These yokai retained characteristics of their original animal nature while developing human-like intelligence and magical abilities. Among these, the kitsune fox yokai are perhaps the most famous. As we noted when discussing Inari, foxes were believed to gain additional tails as they aged, with nine-tailed foxes being the most powerful. Kitsune could shapeshift into human form, create illusory fires called kitsunebi, foxfire, and even possess humans under certain circumstances. While some served as messengers for Inari and brought good fortune, others were tricksters who delighted in creating mischief or even causing harm. Similarly, tanuki, raccoon dogs, developed supernatural powers with age. Unlike the often elegant and refined kitsune, tanuki were portrayed as jolly, mischievous creatures, with enormous testicles that they could stretch and transform into various objects, from boats and bridges to umbrellas and drums. Despite their comical appearance, tanuki were skilled shapeshifters who often fooled humans with their illusions, though their pranks were rarely malicious. The nekomata represents yet another animal transformation, a cat that has lived long enough to develop a forked tail and the ability to stand on its hind legs like a human. These feline yokai could control the dead and were sometimes associated with unfortunate households where mysterious deaths occurred. The fear of cats developing these powers led to the practice of cutting cats' tails in ancient Japan, a misguided attempt to prevent their transformation. Water bodies hosted their own distinctive yokai. The kappa, a turtle-like water imp with a bowl-shaped depression on its head, dwelled in rivers and ponds. Despite their childlike size, kappa were known for their impressive strength and knowledge of bone-setting techniques, an early form of medicine. While they could be dangerous, pulling unwary swimmers underwater, they were bound by a strict code of etiquette. If their head bowl spilled, they lost their power, and if you bowed to them, they were compelled to bow back, a weakness humans could exploit to empty their water and render them harmless. Mountain areas were home to tengu, bird-like yokai with red faces and long noses who evolved from nature spirits into powerful supernatural beings associated with mountains and forests. Early depictions showed them as destructive demons, but over time they developed into more complex figures who sometimes taught martial arts or esoteric knowledge to humans. Buddhist tradition portrayed them as proud individuals who had fallen from human form due to arrogance, a morality tale about the dangers of spiritual pride. Among the most feared yokai were the oni, demon-like beings, usually depicted with horns, sharp claws, and often red or blue skin. They were immensely strong and typically malevolent, though some tales feature oni who form positive relationships with humans. During the Setsubun festival, marking the beginning of spring, Japanese families traditionally throw roasted soybeans while chanting Oni wa Soto, Fuku wa Uchi, demons out, good fortune in, a ritual purification symbolically driving away evil influences. Not all yokai originated from natural elements or animals. Some were transformed humans or human artifacts. The yurei, or ghosts, represent humans who died with unresolved attachments or emotions so powerful they prevented the spirit from moving on. Unlike Western ghosts, who might be bound to specific locations, yurei were typically bound by emotional states. Vengeful spirits, onryo, loving ghosts who couldn't leave their beloved, koibito yurei, or spirits seeking to fulfill obligations left incomplete in life. Perhaps the most unsettling human-derived yokai are the tsukumogami, everyday objects that acquire a spirit and come to life after existing for 100 years. Abandoned tools, forgotten umbrellas, discarded sandals, anything might potentially develop consciousness and a personality, often bearing a grudge for being carelessly discarded. These animated objects remind us that in traditional Japanese thought, even inanimate items contained spiritual essence that deserved respect. Yokai beliefs weren't merely superstition, but served important social functions. Tales of dangerous yokai lurking in forests or deep waters kept children from wandering into hazardous areas. Stories of objects coming to life encouraged proper care and respect for possessions in a resource-limited society. Legends of household spirits who rewarded cleanliness and proper behavior reinforced social norms and domestic harmony. The Edo period, 1603 to 1867, saw an explosion of interest in yokai lore, with artists like Toriyama Sekian cataloging hundreds of these supernatural beings in illustrated encyclopedias. These visual depictions standardized yokai imagery and spread their stories throughout Japanese society. During this era, a practice called Hyakumonogatari Kaidenkai, gathering of 100 supernatural tales, became popular. People would share ghost stories by candlelight, extinguishing one candle after each tale until the room was completely dark, presumably attracting yokai to the gathering. The early Meiji period brought westernization and modernization to Japan, and with it came scientific rationalism that dismissed yokai beliefs as superstition. However, scholars like Yanagita Kunio later recognized the cultural value of these traditions, collecting and preserving yokai stories as important elements of Japanese folklore. Today, yokai have experienced a renaissance in popular culture, appearing in manga, anime, video games, and films, their ancient forms adapted for contemporary audiences while retaining their essential characteristics. What makes yokai particularly suited for our bedtime contemplation is their liminal nature. They exist at the boundaries between states of being. They inhabit the twilight between human and animal, animate and inanimate, natural and supernatural. In this way, they mirror our current state as we hover between wakefulness and sleep, conscious thought and dreaming mind. Consider the Zashiki Warashi, a yokai that takes the form of a child with red cheeks and bobbed hair. This spirit haunts old Japanese houses, particularly those with spacious zashiki, reception rooms with tatami flooring. Unlike many supernatural beings, the Zashiki Warashi brings good fortune. Their presence indicates a household will prosper, while their departure foretells decline. As you drift toward sleep, imagine this gentle child spirit watching over your home, ensuring peace and protection through the night. Or think of the gentle Bakaneko, a transforming cat yokai who might curl up at the foot of your bedding, its purring a soothing reminder of the benevolent aspects of the yokai world. While some cat yokai were feared, many were considered protective household guardians, keeping away rats and evil influences alike. For those who live near water, the gentle Furodanuki might visit, a transformed tanuki who enjoys nothing more than warming himself in the hot water left in the bath. This harmless yokai appreciates human hospitality and might leave a leaf currency gift in thanks, though these magical leaves typically transform back by morning, teaching us that kindness itself, rather than material reward, is the true blessing of generosity. Japanese yokai traditions remind us that the boundary between the mundane and the magical is permeable, that ordinary reality contains extraordinary possibilities just beyond our usual perception. As you prepare for sleep, consider how this mirrors the transition from waking consciousness to the marvelous realm of dreams, where ordinary rules no longer apply and transformation becomes possible. The yokai also embody Japanese concepts of balance and harmony. Many troublesome yokai can be appeased with proper respect and ritual observance. The fearsome oni may be driven away with soybeans. The mischievous kitsune can be recognized by their inability to hide their shadow or reflection, and even the dangerous kappa must bow if you bow to them first. This suggests that understanding and proper interaction, rather than mere force, are the keys to navigating life's challenges. As your consciousness continues to drift toward sleep, imagine the Nurari Shion, an elderly yokai who slips into homes at dusk when people's attention wanders. He makes himself comfortable, drinking tea and acting as if he owns the place. This peculiar creature reminds us to release control as we prepare for sleep. Just as households must sometimes accommodate unexpected guests, our minds must make room for dreams, allowing the unexpected to enter without resistance. The world of yokai teaches us that the unknown need not always be feared, that mystery and wonder are essential parts of a rich and meaningful life. The boundaries between understood and unexplained, familiar and strange, add texture to our experience, inviting curiosity rather than mere fear. In our next chapter, we will explore one of Japan's most beloved folktales, the story of Momotaro, the Peach Boy. But for now, allow yourself to sink deeper into relaxation, perhaps imagining the Baku, a dream-eating yokai resembling a tapir, waiting nearby to consume any troubling dreams that might disturb your rest. In Japanese tradition, children would call upon the Baku before sleep, saying, "Baku-san, come eat my dream," if they feared nightmares. Let the gentle creatures of Japanese folklore stand guard over your dreams tonight, transforming any disturbances into peaceful visions, just as yokai tales transform our fears into manageable stories. Rest easily, knowing that even the mysterious aspects of night hold their own form of benevolence when approached with respect and gentle awareness. As you sink deeper into comfort and tranquility, let us explore one of Japan's most beloved folk tales, the story of Momotaro, the Peach Boy. Unlike the cosmic myths of creation or the complex pantheon of gods we have discussed in previous chapters, this tale belongs to the rich tradition of Mukashi Banashi, or tales of long ago, stories passed down through generations that reflect the values, hopes, and wisdom of ordinary Japanese people. The tale of Momotaro begins, as many good stories do, with longing. In a peaceful mountain village lived an elderly couple, kind and hard-working, but childless. The old man spent his days cutting wood in the forest, while his wife washed clothes in the river. Though they had built a simple but comfortable life together, they felt the absence of a child to love and to eventually care for them in their final years. One day, as the old woman was washing clothes in the river, she noticed something unusual floating downstream toward her, a peach of extraordinary size and beauty, glowing with a gentle inner light. Such a fruit in the depths of winter was remarkable enough, but this peach was larger than any she had ever seen, its skin a perfect pink blush against the cold winter waters. What a wonderful gift, she thought, carefully lifting the giant fruit from the river. My husband will be so pleased to share this sweet treat after his long day of work. Cradling the peach in her apron, she carried it home with anticipation. When her husband returned from the forest that evening, she proudly showed him the magnificent peach. Just as they were about to cut it open and share its sweet flesh, something extraordinary happened. The peach split apart on its own, and inside, instead of a pit, they found a perfect baby boy, small but perfectly formed and radiantly healthy. "A child has come to us from heaven," the old man said in wonder, tears of joy streaming down his weathered face. His wife, equally moved, gathered the infant in her arms, her heart overflowing with sudden maternal love. They named the child Momotaro, Momo meaning peach and taro, being a common name for a firstborn son. Momotaro grew at an astonishing rate, demonstrating from his earliest days that he was no ordinary child. By the end of his first week, he was the size of a 1-year-old. By the end of the first month, he looked like a child of 5 or 6, And it wasn't just his physical development that was remarkable. He possessed extraordinary strength, intelligence, and a noble character that seemed almost divine in origin. The elderly couple raised him with loving care, sharing their simple values and wisdom. In return, Momotaro helped them with their daily tasks, his supernatural strength making light work of chores that had become increasingly difficult for his aging parents. The small family lived in contentment, their previously quiet home now filled with laughter and purpose. However, their peaceful existence was soon threatened by troubling news. For many years, the village had suffered occasional raids from Oni, fierce demons who lived on a distant island called Onigashima. These fearsome creatures would swoop down on coastal settlements, stealing food, treasures, and sometimes even kidnapping villagers. With each successful raid, the Oni grew bolder, extending their reach farther inland. Upon hearing tales of these terrors from villagers, Momotaro's sense of justice was stirred. As he approached young adulthood, he made a momentous decision. Honored parents, he announced one evening, I must go to Onigashima to defeat the Oni and bring peace to our land. Please prepare for me kibidango, millet dumplings, for my journey. Though heartbroken at the thought of their precious son facing such danger, his parents recognized the nobility of his purpose. His mother prepared the finest kibidango she could make, infusing them with all her love and hopes for his success and safe return. His father gave him the family's treasured sword, passed down through generations, but rarely used in their peaceful life. With tearful blessings, they sent him on his way, pride mingling with their fears. As Momotaro journeyed toward the distant shore, from where he would set sail to Onigashima, he encountered a dog standing in his path. Momotaro, Momotaro, where are you going? Asked the dog. I am going to Onigashima to defeat the Oni who have been terrorizing our land, Momotaro replied. What do you carry in your pouch? Inquired the dog. The finest kibidango in all of Japan, made by my mother, answered Momotaro. Give me one, and I will join you on your quest, the dog proposed. Seeing the potential value of a companion with keen senses and loyal nature, Momotaro shared one of his precious dumplings with the dog, who upon eating it was infused with human speech and enhanced strength. Together, they continued down the path. Not long after, they came upon a monkey engaged in a territorial dispute with other monkeys. After observing the monkey's agility and cleverness, Momotaro called out to him. A conversation similar to the one with the dog ensued, resulting in Momotaro sharing another kibidango and gaining a second companion. The monkey, known for intelligence and dexterity, would complement the dog's tracking abilities. Further along their journey, the growing party encountered a pheasant who was having difficulty finding food in the winter landscape. Following the now established pattern, Momotaro offered a kibidango in exchange for the bird's service. With its gift of flight for scouting and sharp beak for battle, the pheasant became the third member of Momotaro's unusual army. This motif of three animal companions reflects a deep pattern in world folklore, where the hero often receives help from beings representing different elements or abilities. The dog symbolized loyalty and earthbound strength. The monkey represented cleverness and adaptability, while the pheasant embodied perspective and connection to the sky realm. Together with Momotaro's human leadership, they formed a complete and balanced team. Upon reaching the shore, Momotaro and his companions built a small boat and set sail for Onigashima. The journey across the sea was perilous, with rough waters and threatening skies. But the pheasant scouted the safest route, the monkey handled the sails with dexterous hands, and the dog's keen senses alerted them to hidden dangers. Momotaro's leadership kept them focused and courageous despite the challenges. When they finally reached Onigashima, they discovered a formidable fortress with massive gates. Rather than attempting a frontal assault, Momotaro devised a strategy that utilized each companion's strengths. The pheasant flew over the walls to scout the interior and create a distraction with its piercing calls. The monkey, with its climbing abilities, scaled the walls and unlocked the gates from within. The dog stood ready with Momotaro to charge once the way was clear. Inside the fortress, they found the Oni in the midst of a feast, celebrating their latest successful raid on human villages. These demons were terrifying to behold, some with red skin, others blue or black, all with horns protruding from their heads, massive bodies clothed in tiger skins, and iron clubs as weapons. They were consuming enormous quantities of food and sake, unaware of the approaching threat. Momotaro and his companions burst into the banquet hall, catching the Oni by surprise. "I am Momotaro, the strongest boy in Japan," he proclaimed. "I have come to punish you for your wicked deeds against innocent people." The battle that followed was fierce but brief. The pheasant darted and pecked at the Oni's eyes, temporarily blinding them. The monkey confused and distracted them with its quick, unpredictable movements. The dog bit at their ankles and heels, hampering their mobility. And Momotaro, empowered by his divine origin and righteous purpose, wielded his sword with extraordinary skill. Soon, the Oni leader, the largest and fiercest of them all, recognized that they were outmatched despite their superior numbers and physical strength. He dropped his iron club and fell to his knees before Momotaro. "Spare us, mighty warrior," he pleaded. "We surrender and will never again harm your people." Momotaro, demonstrating the mercy that separates true heroes from mere fighters, accepted their surrender on 3 conditions. They must return all stolen treasures, release any captured humans, and swear a solemn oath never again to raid human settlements. The Oni leader agreed to these terms, seeing in Momotaro's eyes that death would be the only alternative. The Oni promptly brought forth their accumulated treasures: gold, silver, rare jewels, magical items, and precious fabrics. From their dungeons came the released prisoners, thin and frightened but overwhelmed with gratitude at their unexpected rescue. The Oni then performed a ritual oath, binding themselves to the promised good behavior. Loading the treasures, and accompanied by the freed captives, Momotaro and his animal companions returned triumphantly to the mainland. Word of their victory spread rapidly, and villages held festivals celebrating the end of the Oni threat. When Momotaro finally returned to his home village, the entire community turned out to honor him, but no welcome was more heartfelt than that of his elderly parents, who had prayed daily for his safe return. The treasures Momotaro brought back were shared appropriately, some to compensate those who had suffered losses in Oni raids, some to benefit the entire community through improved infrastructure, and a portion for his parents to ensure they would never again want for anything in their remaining years. The animal companions chose to remain with Momotaro, forming an unusual but harmonious household. The tale of Momotaro continues to hold a special place in Japanese culture. During the Meiji period, it was incorporated into the official school curriculum as a story exemplifying key virtues: filial piety, courage, resourcefulness, and cooperation. In modern times, it has been adapted into countless books, films, and anime, each interpretation bringing different emphases while maintaining the core narrative. Beyond its entertainment value, the story offers several layers of meaning. At one level, it addresses the universal human longing for children and family continuity. The elderly couple's devotion is rewarded not through conventional means, but through a miraculous intervention, suggesting that sincere desire and goodness of heart may attract blessings from unexpected sources. The tale also celebrates the virtue of cooperation across differences. Momotaro's success depends not just on his own extraordinary qualities, but on his ability to recognize the value in others, even those from entirely different species, and create a team where diverse abilities complement each other. This message of cooperation, despite differences, resonates deeply in Japanese culture, where group harmony is highly valued. As your consciousness drifts closer to sleep, consider the peaceful resolution of Momotaro's story. The hero's journey ends not with the total destruction of the enemies, but with their reformation and integration into a more harmonious order. This reflects a profound philosophical perspective that true victory lies not in eliminating opposition, but in transforming it, not in conquering through force alone, but in establishing a new balance that benefits all. Let the gentle rhythm of this ancient tale rock you closer to sleep, its familiar narrative structure guiding you like a well-worn path toward dreams. Imagine the satisfaction of Momotaro returning home, mission accomplished, to the loving embrace of his parents. Just as he found his place in the world, fulfilling his unique purpose, so too will you awaken refreshed tomorrow to continue your own distinctive journey. In our next chapter, we will explore the fascinating story of Benten and the seven lucky gods, whose diverse origins reflect Japan's remarkable ability to synthesize spiritual traditions. But for now, rest in the simple wisdom of Momotaro's tale that courage, compassion, and cooperation can overcome even the most formidable challenges, bringing peace to troubled lands and hearts alike. As your breathing deepens and your thoughts grow gentle, let us explore one of the most charming aspects of Japanese spiritual tradition: the seven lucky gods, or Shichifukujin, with particular attention to the only female deity among them, the beautiful and accomplished Benzaiten, often called Benten. The seven lucky gods represent a fascinating example of Japan's remarkable ability to synthesize diverse spiritual traditions. Unlike the purely indigenous kami of Shinto, these seven deities have varied origins, some coming from native Japanese beliefs, others from China, and still others from as far away as India. Together, they form a harmonious assembly of beneficent forces, each bestowing particular blessings upon their devotees. The tradition of grouping these seven deities together began during the Muromachi period, 1436 to 1573, though the individual gods were venerated much earlier. Their collective worship reached its height during the Edo period, when merchants and ordinary citizens sought supernatural assistance for success and prosperity. Among the seven, Benzaiten stands out not only for being the sole female, but for her fascinating evolution across Asian spiritual traditions. Originally, she was Saraswati, the Hindu goddess of knowledge, music, arts, and learning. As Buddhism spread from India to China and then to Japan, Saraswati was incorporated into Buddhist cosmology as a protective deity. By the time she reached Japan in the 6th to 8th centuries CE, she had been transformed into Benzaiten, a multifaceted goddess associated with everything that flows: water, words, eloquence, music, knowledge, and wealth. Her name itself reflects this aspect. Benzai derives from the Sanskrit bidya, meaning wisdom or eloquence, while ten signifies a heavenly being. In early Japanese depictions, Benzaiten retained her connection to water, often being enshrined on islands or near lakes, rivers, and seas. Her most famous sanctuary, Enoshima Shrine, is located on a small island in Sagami Bay, connected to the mainland by a slender bridge. According to legend, Benzaiten created the island to subdue a troublesome, five-headed dragon that had been terrorizing the region. Instead of slaying the creature, she transformed it through compassion, converting it into a protector of the land, a theme of transformation through wisdom rather than destruction through force that appears frequently in her mythology. As Japanese culture evolved, so too did Benzaiten's image and attributes. In some traditions, she is depicted with 8 arms, each holding an object symbolic of her powers: a sword, a spear, a bow, an arrow, a wheel, a key, a precious jewel, and her signature biwa, a short-necked lute. More commonly in Japan, however, she appears in a simplified form as a beautiful woman playing a biwa, dressed in flowing robes and often accompanied by a white snake or dragon, symbolizing her connection to water and wisdom. Her association with music made her the patron deity of geisha, musicians, artists, and writers who prayed to her for inspiration and skill. Her connection to flowing water, which over time can wear away mountains and create fertile valleys, linked her to wealth that flows to those who properly honor her. Merchants thus added her to their pantheon of revered deities. Benzaiten's inclusion among the 7 lucky gods represents a fascinating cultural synthesis. As the only female in the group, she brings balance and completeness to the assembly, embodying the principle that true good fortune requires the harmonious blending of diverse energies. Now, let us meet her 6 companions, each with their own distinctive history and blessings. Ebisu, the only member with purely Japanese origins, began as a Shinto kami associated with fishing and marine abundance. According to some traditions, he was originally Hiruko, the first child of Izanagi and Izanami, who was born without bones, or in some versions, malformed, and set adrift in a boat of reeds. After overcoming these challenges, he became a benevolent deity of honest labor, particularly fishing and agriculture. Typically depicted as a smiling fisherman holding a rod and a large red sea bream, Tai fish, Ibisu represents the virtue of hard work rewarded and the promise that persistence can overcome initial disadvantages. Daikokuten, originally derived from the Hindu deity Mahakala and the Buddhist Daikoku, transformed in Japan from a fearsome protective figure into a jolly god of wealth, agriculture, and the kitchen. His most recognizable attributes are his golden mallet, which grants wishes when struck, and the large sack of treasures he carries over his shoulder. Often depicted standing on rice bales, his round, contented face and plump figure suggest abundance and the pleasure of having enough. In some households, small daikokuten statues are placed in the kitchen to ensure the family never knows hunger. Bishamonten, derived from the Buddhist guardian deity Vaisravana, represents righteous war, defense of the faith, and authority. Typically portrayed in armor with a spear in one hand and a small pagoda in the other, he protects against evil and illness while rewarding those who fight for just causes. His martial appearance might seem at odds with the generally benevolent nature of the seven lucky gods, but he reminds us that good fortune sometimes requires the courage to defend what is valuable. Fukurokuju, whose name combines the Japanese words for happiness, fuku, prosperity, roku, and longevity, ju, is immediately recognizable by his enormously elongated forehead and typically short stature. Of Chinese Taoist origin, he is associated with wisdom that comes from long life and experience, often accompanied by a crane, turtle, or deer, all symbols of longevity in East Asian tradition. He represents the good fortune of a long, healthy life filled with accumulated wisdom. Jorojin, another deity associated with longevity, is closely related to Fukurokuju, with some traditions even suggesting they are different manifestations of the same being. Distinguished by his flowing white beard and scholarly appearance, Jorojin is typically depicted with a staff from which hangs a scroll containing all the wisdom of the world. Often accompanied by a deer, he embodies the quiet dignity of advanced age and the perspective that comes from witnessing many seasons of life. Hotei, perhaps the most instantly recognizable of the seven, is the round-bellied, laughing Buddha figure familiar even to many Westerners. Derived from a historical Chinese Buddhist monk named Budai, Hotei represents contentment, generosity, and the abundance that comes from magnanimous sharing rather than hoarding. His large cloth sack contains treasures he distributes to children and the needy, and his broad smile reminds us that material wealth without happiness is meaningless fortune indeed. Together, these seven deities form a balanced assembly representing different paths to good fortune. Their diverse origins, Shinto, Buddhist, Hindu, Taoist, and Confucian, reflect Japan's historical openness to incorporating beneficial influences from various traditions, creating something new and uniquely Japanese from these disparate elements. In Japanese popular culture, the seven lucky gods are often depicted sailing together on their treasure ship, Takarabune, which arrives in port on New Year's Eve. According to tradition, placing an image of this ship beneath one's pillow on the first night of the new year will bring auspicious dreams and good fortune in the coming year. This belief connects the deities directly to the dream world we are now approaching as you continue to relax. Pilgrimages to temples and shrines dedicated to the seven lucky gods became popular during the Edo period and continue today. In many Japanese cities, pilgrimage routes connect 7 different shrines, each dedicated to one of the deities. Completing the circuit, especially during the first 7 days of the new year, is believed to bring particular blessing. These pilgrimages combine spiritual practice, cultural tradition, physical exercise, and social activity, a holistic approach to well-being characteristic of Japanese spiritual practice. The 7 lucky gods appear frequently in Japanese art, from serious religious icons to playful folk crafts. They are carved as netsuke, small toggles used to secure items to traditional clothing, painted on scrolls, molded as figurines, and even shaped into children's toys and modern gadgets. Their friendly, approachable nature makes them particularly beloved in household settings, where small shrines or images invite their blessings into daily life. Among these artistic representations, Benzaiten often receives special treatment. Her association with music and the arts makes her a natural subject for refined aesthetic expression. Sometimes she is depicted alone, serene and elegant, playing her biwa beside flowing water. In other representations, she appears with her six companions, her feminine grace providing balance to their various masculine energies. The harmony of the seven deities, despite their diverse origins, offers a beautiful metaphor for social cooperation across differences. Each god brings unique gifts and attributes, creating a more complete assembly together than any could constitute alone. This metaphor extends to human society, suggesting that communities thrive best when diverse talents and perspectives are honored and integrated. At a deeper level, the seven lucky gods can be understood as representing different aspects of a fulfilled human life: honest work, ebisu, abundance, daikokuten, protection, bishamonten, longevity, fukurokuju, wisdom, jirojin, happiness, hotei, and creativity, benzaiten. Genuine good fortune, this arrangement suggests, comes not from excess in any single dimension, but from balanced development across multiple areas of life. For those seeking sleep, there is particular wisdom in Hotei's relaxed contentment and Benzaiten's flowing grace. Hotei reminds us to release the day's concerns, finding satisfaction in the simple pleasure of rest. Benzaiten teaches us that, like water, our consciousness can flow smoothly from wakefulness to sleep, carrying us gently into dreams. As your awareness continues to drift, imagine the treasure ship of the seven lucky gods approaching the harbor of your consciousness. Hotei laughs softly at the bow, his generous spirits setting the tone for this benevolent visit. Jirojin and Fukurokuju sit companionably together, their ancient wisdom creating a sense of timeless peace. Bishamonten stands alert, but at ease, ensuring safe passage through the night. Daikokuten and Ebisu chat quietly, their earthy practicality grounding the assembly. And there is Benzaiten, her fingers moving gracefully across the strings of her biwa, creating a melody that seems to speak directly to your deepening relaxation. The notes flow like water, like consciousness itself, guiding you toward the shoreline where wakefulness meets sleep. Her music contains no demand, no expectation, only the gentle invitation to release into natural rhythm. The ship glides closer, bringing its cargo of good fortune, prosperity, wisdom, protection, contentment, longevity, and creative flow. These are gifts not just for the coming year, but for the hours of sleep ahead, a protected space of renewal, a time of natural abundance as your body restores itself, a creative interlude where your mind weaves dreams from the day's experiences. In our final chapter, we will explore the enduring legacy of Japanese mythology in contemporary culture. But for now, allow the seven lucky gods to bestow their blessings upon your rest. Feel Hotei's contentment spreading through your body as tension releases. Let Jirojin's wisdom remind you that sleep has carried you safely through countless nights before this one. Accept Benzaiten's invitation to flow with rather than resist the natural current carrying you toward dreams. The Takarabune approaches the shore of sleep, its precious cargo of blessings ready to be unloaded into your dreams. Benzaiten's music grows softer, more intermittent, the pauses between notes growing longer as the boundary between conscious thought and dreaming mind becomes more permeable. The ship's gentle rocking merges with your breathing, steady, rhythmic, carrying you ever closer to the restoration that awaits in deepest sleep. As your consciousness hovers in that peaceful space between wakefulness and dreams, let us conclude our journey through Japanese mythology by exploring how these ancient stories continue to resonate and evolve in the modern world. The enduring legacy of these myths reveals much about both traditional Japanese culture and its dynamic contemporary expressions. Like a river flowing from distant mountains to the present day sea, Japanese mythology has never remained static. Instead, these stories have continually adapted, absorbing new influences while maintaining their essential character. This remarkable continuity amid change offers us gentle insights as we prepare to drift into sleep's transformative embrace. The most direct continuation of ancient myths can be found in Japan's religious practices. Shinto, the indigenous faith that gave us the creation myths of Izanagi and Izanami and the heavenly drama of Amaterasu, remains an integral part of Japanese life. Major shrines like Ise Jingu, dedicated to Amaterasu, and Izumo Taisha, associated with Okuninushi, son of Susanoo, continue to attract millions of visitors annually. These sacred spaces connect modern Japanese people with the same kami their ancestors venerated thousands of years ago. Many Japanese people participate in Shinto rituals at significant life transitions. Newborns are presented at shrines for blessings, couples marry in Shinto ceremonies, and families celebrate children's growth milestones with shrine visits. These practices maintain a living connection to the mythological worldview, where human life is seen as intertwined with natural and supernatural forces, requiring proper acknowledgement and respect. Seasonal festivals throughout Japan often reenact elements from mythological stories. The Kasuga Wakamiya on Matsuri in Nara includes dances that recall Amano Uzumi's performance to lure Amaterasu from her cave. The Setsubun Festival's bean-throwing ritual to drive away Oni connects modern participants to ancient beliefs about demarcating boundaries between ordinary reality and supernatural realms. Through these community celebrations, myths become embodied experiences rather than merely stories from the past. Beyond formal religious contexts, Japanese mythology permeates popular culture in ways both obvious and subtle. Perhaps nowhere is this influence more visible than in manga, Japanese comics, and anime animation. These contemporary art forms have become Japan's most recognized cultural exports, introducing global audiences to reimagined versions of traditional myths. Series like Noragami feature Shinto gods navigating the modern world, while Inuyasha draws heavily on yokai lore. Naruto incorporates elements from the tale of Momotaro and various yokai traditions. Even the internationally beloved works of Studio Ghibli, such as Spirited Away and Princess Mononoke, are infused with Shinto sensibilities about the sacred quality of nature and the thin boundary between human and spirit worlds. Video games represent another medium where Japanese mythology flourishes in reimagined forms. The hugely popular Okami casts players as the sun goddess Amaterasu in wolf form, restoring color and life to a world threatened by darkness. The Persona series draws extensively on various mythological systems, including Japanese deities and yokai. Even games developed outside Japan, like Ghost of Tsushima, incorporate elements of Japanese supernatural lore to create atmospheric storytelling. Literature, too, continues to engage with these ancient narratives. Contemporary Japanese authors, like Haruki Murakami, weave yokai like entities and supernatural elements, reminiscent of traditional mythology, into otherwise modern settings. Meanwhile, the growing international popularity of Japanese myths has inspired non Japanese authors to incorporate these elements into their own works, creating cross cultural dialogues that both preserve and transform the original stories. Japanese architecture and design continue to be influenced by mythological principles. Shinto aesthetics, with their emphasis on natural materials, asymmetry, and creating harmony with the environment, inform contemporary Japanese architecture, from modest homes to striking modern buildings. The arrangement of traditional gardens often references mythological landscapes, with stones representing mountains where kami dwell and carefully raked gravel suggesting the cosmic ocean from which the first land emerged. Even everyday objects in Japanese life often contain subtle references to mythology. The imperial seal of Japan features a 16-petaled chrysanthemum, symbolizing the connection between the imperial family and Amaterasu. Common household items may be decorated with auspicious symbols associated with the seven lucky gods or protective yokai. These visual reminders integrate mythological awareness into daily experience, maintaining traditions while adapting them to contemporary contexts. The influence extends to Japan's international relations and national identity as well. The creation myth of the Japanese islands emerging from the divine spear of Izanagi and Izanami underscores a sense of Japan as a distinctive land with a special relationship to the divine. Stories of Amaterasu as the divine ancestress of the imperial line have shaped historical understandings of Japanese uniqueness. While modern interpretations tend to emphasize the cultural rather than literal truth of these myths, they continue to inform a sense of shared heritage and collective identity. What makes Japanese mythology particularly resilient in the modern era is its inherent flexibility. Unlike some religious traditions that establish rigid dogma, Japanese myth has historically embraced ambiguity and multiple interpretations. The same deity might appear differently in various regions or traditions without creating theological crisis. This adaptability allowed Japanese mythology to incorporate Buddhist elements when that tradition arrived from the Asian mainland, and it continues to facilitate creative reinterpretations in contemporary contexts. The psychological depth of Japanese myths also ensures their ongoing relevance. The story of Amaterasu retreating into a cave speaks to experiences of depression and withdrawal that remain universally human. Susanoo's journey from destructive rage to heroic purpose mirrors psychological growth patterns recognized by modern therapeutic approaches. Momotaro's assembly of diverse companions to overcome challenges reinforces the enduring value of cooperation across differences. These psychological insights give the myths staying power beyond their specific cultural contexts. For many contemporary Japanese people, the relationship with mythology has become more aesthetic and cultural than literally religious. They might not believe in the literal existence of Amaterasu or Susanoo, yet they value these stories as expressions of shared heritage and sources of wisdom about human experience. This shift from literal to metaphorical interpretation allows the myths to remain relevant in an increasingly secular and scientific world. Environmental themes in Japanese mythology have gained renewed significance in our era of ecological awareness. The ancient Japanese worldview, where mountains, rivers, And animals are sacred entities deserving respect, offers a corrective to exploitative attitudes toward nature. The concept of kami residing in natural features encourages a relationship with the environment based on reverence rather than mere utility. These perspectives resonate with contemporary environmental ethics while drawing from ancient wisdom. The aesthetic principles derived from Japanese mythology, the appreciation of impermanence, the beauty found in simplicity, the acceptance of natural cycles, have influenced global artistic and philosophical movements. Concepts like wabi sabi, finding beauty in imperfection, and mono no aware, the pathos of impermanence, have roots in the mythological worldview but have transcended their origins to become internationally recognized approaches to finding meaning in a transient world. As technology advances, Japanese mythology finds expression in new media. Virtual reality experiences allow participants to enter mythological realms, interacting with yokai, or witnessing the divine dance that lured Amaterasu from her cave. Artificial intelligence programs create new stories inspired by traditional yokai characteristics. Rather than rendering the old stories obsolete, technology offers fresh ways to experience and engage with mythological content. In this age of global connection, Japanese mythology has become part of the world's shared cultural heritage. Elements that once belonged exclusively to Japanese tradition, like kitsune and tanuki, or concepts like kami, are now recognized internationally. This diffusion represents not a dilution, but an expansion, as these myths find new audiences and interpretations while maintaining connections to their origins. Perhaps most relevant to our current state of approaching sleep is how Japanese mythology views transitions between states of being. The Japanese mythological worldview has always recognized the permeability of boundaries between gods and humans, between living and dead, between waking and dreaming. This comfort with liminal spaces offers wisdom for our nightly transition into sleep, suggesting that we need not fear the temporary surrender of our waking consciousness. As you continue to relax, imagine the myths we've explored throughout these chapters, not as distant tales from a foreign land, but as expressions of universal human experiences, our wonder at the cosmos, our search for meaning, our negotiation with the unknown forces that shape our lives. Though clothed in culturally specific details, these stories speak to something fundamentally human that transcends time and geography. The river of Japanese mythology continues to flow from ancient origins through countless generations, adapting to new landscapes while maintaining its essential character. Like this mythic river, your consciousness now moves from the defined banks of wakefulness toward the open sea of dreams, carrying the day's experiences into that transformative realm where they may be integrated and renewed. As we conclude our journey through Japanese mythology, allow these ancient yet ever living stories to accompany you across the threshold of sleep. Let Amaterasu's eventual emergence from her cave remind you that darkness is always temporary. Let Benten's flowing music guide your thoughts toward increasingly gentle rhythms. Let the yokai stand guard over your dreams, transforming potential disturbances into benevolent visions. The cycle of these myths, so like the cycle of day and night, continues endlessly. Stories that comforted and instructed people thousands of years ago still offer their wisdom to us today, connecting us across time in the shared human experience. As you drift now toward sleep, You participate in this great continuity, the natural rhythm of consciousness that has accompanied humanity throughout our existence. Rest now in the gentle embrace of these timeless tales, knowing that like Momotaro returning home, like Amaterasu emerging from her cave, like the seasonal return of the seven lucky gods, you too will return refreshed from your journey into dreams. The myths will wait patiently for you, eternal yet ever changing, ready to offer their wisdom again whenever you wish to revisit them. Sleep well, dreamer, cradled in the ancient, ever present stories that connect us all.